The discussion regarding whether or not Pierre Gasly should be sacked from Red Bull has been going on for quite a while now. There are valid arguments on both sides. However, in this video, we will not be looking to see if he should stay at Red Bull, but rather, I will present the drivers that could potentially replace him, should Red Bull decide to sack him. Then I will look to see who the best contenders are, and how likely they are to join Red Bull in those circumstances. Firstly, let's look at some background information about Pierre Gasly and his career. Before entering Formula 1, Gasly won the 2016 GP2 Championship. He was called into Toro Rosso towards the end of the 2017 season, with his performances not being too spectacular. After being retained by Toro Rosso, he secured a career-best 4th place finish in Bahrain, which really put him into the spotlight. The rest of the season wasn't as good, but it wasn't too bad either, with 4 other points finishes. Due to Daniel Ricciardo's shock move to Renault, Gasly was promoted to the Red Bull team, but since then, he has really failed to deliver and has gone without a single podium. The fact that his teammate is the world champion in waiting, Max Verstappen, doesn't make his situation any better. Max has scored 3 podiums this year, including a win at Austria where he actually lapped Gasly in the same car. So, Red Bull can't just replace Pierre Gasly with any other driver. They need a driver who fits their criteria and is better than Pierre, because they can't afford to have a driver not up to scratch yet again. Here are some of the main qualities that a new driver would need in order to be a better option than Gasly. Raw pace. The driver in question would need to be able to deliver on the lap time basis and be capable of challenging Verstappen in qualifying. This is important because races can be very heavily influenced by the qualifying position of the driver. Racing ability. After doing the job on Saturday, the driver would need to be able to fight for positions on track. Red Bull crucially need another driver who can do this in order to possibly catch Ferrari in the constructors' standings. So far this year, Gasly has not been up to standard with his on-track ability, both while attacking and defending. Speaking of the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull also needs someone who can play the team game during races. This means that the driver should be someone who can sometimes settle for number 2, so there are no risky clashes on track that could cost the team valuable points in the Constructors' Championship. A more experienced driver would also be a great help, because they could potentially do a better job at helping to develop the car and get used to the car. One thing that many people have criticised about Red Bull's decision to promote Gasly is that he was too inexperienced for the role. Various other attributes such as tyre management skills would also be very beneficial to the team. In short, Red Bull needs a driver who is better than Gasly in all areas, because there is no point replacing him for someone equal in performance. Now that we've got the criteria, let's look at the possible contenders. The required qualities have eliminated many drivers. For example, many promising young drivers in F2 and also in F1, like Alex Albon, are too inexperienced and would potentially have the same fate that Gasly did. Driver contract lengths and the state of their current team also plays a part in this. The 2 Mercedes drivers would not want to switch to Red Bull. They are in the best team and Hamilton is certainly comfortable. I predict that Bottas will be retained by Mercedes and he will do his level best to stay with them. Charles Leclerc would not be a contender because he is the future of Ferrari and has just been promoted, so wouldn't suddenly switch to a rival team. Meanwhile, Sebastian Vettel doesn't look like an attractive option because of his poor form, and the fact that there are plenty of rumours of retirement, and Red Bull need a driver for the long term. Daniel Ricciardo is also not an option because he has just left the team and has a 2-year deal with Renault. However, his teammate Nico Hülkenberg has a contract which expires at the end of this year, so he could make the switch. Hülkenberg is also relatively experienced, consistent, mature, and is said to be on the same level as some of the top drivers. This could be his big chance. Neither of the Haas drivers would be ideal because of their poor form, and also Magnussen's contract runs into 2020. Sainz and Norris are also not options because they have been confirmed to be driving for McLaren next year and are part of the team's long-term future and resurgence. Lance Stroll has a future at Racing Point because his father actually bought the team. He is also not one of the better drivers on the grid. His teammate Perez, on the other hand, is free for 2020 and, like Hülkenberg, is experienced, consistent and a very good driver, proven by the fact that he has scored many podiums in a midfield car. Perez would be a good choice. Kimi Raikkonen seems very happy and relaxed at Alfa Romeo, so he wouldn't want to move, and his teammate, Antonio Giovinazzi, would in my opinion not be better than Gasly. Alex Albon from Gasly's old team has impressed, just like Gasly did, but promoting him could just be a repeat of what Red Bull has done already. His teammate Daniel Kvyat seems to have bettered himself in all areas and seems to be a good option. From Williams, George Russell is tied to Mercedes, so his eyes will be on Bottas's seat, while Kubica has not been up to standard. Although he is currently not racing in F1, Fernando Alonso could possibly take up the Red Bull seat, especially since McLaren has allowed him to race for rival teams. However, Red Bull would want a team builder and a team player for the long term, and Alonso is not any of those. So if Gasly gets dropped, our likely replacements are Nico Hülkenberg, Sergio Perez and Daniel Kvyat. Out of these three, I think that Kvyat has the lowest chance of being selected. This is because, after his famous demotion that allowed Verstappen into Red Bull, they will not take him up yet again. Also, being partnered with the person who almost entirely ruined his career would potentially form a bad relationship within the team. Now we are choosing between Hülkenberg and Perez. They are both regarded to be very good and it is difficult to choose between them. But a decision must be made, and I predict and conclude that if Hülkenberg manages to beat Ricciardo this year, then Red Bull will take him. If not, then they will take Perez. This is because they need a driver at least on the level of Daniel Ricciardo, since he was excellent in his time at Red Bull, so he is a very good benchmark. If Hülkenberg doesn't beat him, then it will seem that he is not up to the ideal standard that Red Bull require to fight Ferrari in the championship. Perez has proved himself time and time again by dragging a midfield car up into the podium. Who do you think could replace Gasly? Comment below.